So we've learned quite a lot about the future of Cyberpunk 2077 the past week, and today I want to go over basically everything that we know about the upcoming expansion, in particular, Phantom Liberty. Now you should know that these are things that we currently know, and I'm sure more information will surface the closer we get to release, which is on September 26th. First things first though, Phantom Liberty will take us to a so far unseen part of Night City called Dogtown, and it's commonly known as the most dangerous place in Night City. Dogtown is controlled by the former NUSA Colonel Kurt Hansen, who's said to be extremely dangerous and very manipulative, and he uses his own militia called the Barghest to rule over Dogtown. And so the story seems to kick off with Barghest forces shooting down the spacecraft called Space Force 1, which is ferrying the NUSA president together with the new character named Songbird and some other people, with it crash landing right smack in the middle of the combat zone. And it's at this point that V gets involved with this entire situation, with V getting tasked with saving the president of the new United States of America. Throughout Phantom Liberty, we'll be introduced to several new key characters, one of them being the NUSA sleeper agent Solomon Reed, played by Idris Elba. And it's together with Solomon as well as Songbird and another new character simply referred to as Alex that V works to rescue the president. And the reward for V doing so is the promise of a reward in the form of Songbird possibly being able to help with V's relic problem. Now, from what has been said and shown about Dogtown, we know that it houses a huge black market, especially when it comes to weapons of all kinds. That said, we're going to see a bunch of new vendors with new weapons and items for us to use, and some of these items will be new cyberware that we haven't seen before. And speaking of which, Phantom Liberty will completely revamp Cyberpunk's base gameplay mechanics, and one of these aspects will affect your equipment and cyberware. Because you see, stats from clothing will be completely removed, and instead, cyberware will be the primary way of increasing your stats this time around. Now, to bring some form of balance to this, installing too many cyberware mods for your V will result in you getting stat penalties. And to clear things up surrounding the rumor that installing too much cyberware will cause V to go cyber psycho, Cyberpunk's quest director Paul Sasko clarified this by saying, "It's all about this balance between risk and reward. We're not going as far as the introduction of cyberpsychosis though. Have that in mind." So yeah, while you can still obviously roleplay as if your V is going cyber psycho, don't expect that as a mechanic anytime soon. Besides this, fellow content creator Susie Hunter, also known as the Sphere Hunter on YouTube, confirmed several things after playing Phantom Liberty herself. In a series of tweets, Susie revealed many different details to look forward to, like the fact that character models have been remodeled, leveling being skill-based instead of stat-based, which simply means that you'll be gaining new attacks and abilities instead of a set percentage increase to your stats. And we can see an example of this on a Reddit thread by the user Clywa5. And as you can see, it finally looks like we'll finally have actual skill trees. Speaking of skills and cyberware, your arm implants are now much more unique, with examples here being the gorilla arms that are now so powerful that you can actually punch NPCs into the stratosphere. And according to an article by Metro, you can now also literally throw people and bodies at your enemies if you have the gorilla arms installed. And in another article by Gaming Deputy, it's mentioned that the Mantis Blades has a new so-called one-touch finisher move, and I'm personally very curious as to what this will look like. Susie also mentions that the police system is being completely revamped, with police now actively chasing you and gangs. And the new system includes actual wanted levels that will have max tac drop in on you via dropships. Melee combat is also supposedly much smoother with a new type of anime dodge instead of the little hop you do in the base game. And finally, you'll be able to actively block bullets with all your bladed weapons. A nice little side note here is that Susie actually voices a new character in the expansion called Stella. And it's always just cool to see other content creators get the chance to do stuff like this. In any case, besides Susie's personal input, it's also been corroborated through different news outlets that yes, ongoing gang fights and police engagements can actually escalate. Speaking of NPCs, Susie also mentioned in her tweet that the enemy AI has been vastly improved and that they actually reposition when fighting, which will obviously make the gameplay a bit more challenging and fun in my opinion. We will also finally get an actual vehicular combat system, and while we haven't seen much of this yet, the previously mentioned Reddit thread displays a screenshot of this as well. And as we can see on the top here, some cars will be equipped with their own weaponry, which again just sounds insanely cool, and it very much plays into what Gabe and Pavel mentioned in their interview with IGN about Phantom Liberty taking a lot of inspiration from stuff like James Bond. And Pavel even spoils that there will be cars with missiles, which just absolutely sounds like it's clearly James Bond inspired. And while we're on the subject of vehicles, you will no longer receive text messages from fixers when it comes to new cars and bikes, but instead you'll be able to shop around on a new in-game website. According to Gabe, there will also be a new fixer in Dogtown that can customize and upgrade your vehicles with weapons and stuff, which again just sounds incredible. One interesting change when it comes to guns is that there will supposedly be a more diverse selection of weapons, and there will be less of the same weapons but with different stats, and it's possible that the old system of finding the same guns over and over again is getting removed entirely. Mind you, this hasn't entirely been confirmed. Now, one huge thing that we still haven't seen yet is about this so-called relic system, which according to Gabe Amantangelo will allow us to power up some of our cyberware abilities in different ways, as well as manipulate other NPC cyberware as well in some way. Pavel Sasko even proceeded giving an example of essentially turbocharging your cyberware, with one example being able to shoot a barrage of missiles with the missile launcher implant. And that's really everything we know about the relic system so far, but it basically sounds like a temporary super boost to your cyberware abilities, and this is another thing that I'm really looking forward to trying out as well. Now let's talk about one of the bigger aspects of Phantom Liberty, and that's about how its story affects the base game. I talked about this in another video the other day, but essentially, while having its own story with you having to make hard choices and see those choices playing out in Phantom Liberty does supposedly unlock a new ending for the main story of Cyberpunk 2077, or, if we are to trust a pretty old leak on the matter, the expansion might be altering one of the existing endings in the base game, depending on what happens in Phantom Liberty. But even if the leak was true, things can change, and it is possible that we might see a completely new ending that we just haven't seen before. On the topic of romance, we still don't know if there will be any new romantic interests, but Pavel Sasko has confirmed that if you have a romance with someone like Panam or Judy, this will be addressed at some part during the expansion. However, he didn't want to say much more than that. Finally, Phantom Liberty will release on PS5, Xbox Series X, and PC for the price of $30 on average. And that's basically everything that we currently know about Phantom Liberty. As I mentioned, there might be more information coming out in the coming days and weeks, in which case I'll likely update you guys on that as well. But do let me know about your thoughts on the upcoming expansion so far in the comments below. And have a great day. Mr. Olton signing out.